Local mayors are not happy with this pension settlement, and the guy who represents them is here tonight. Dan Beardsley's my guest this evening, and he's my hero already because I got to take a minute so he can explain how he is. I never had a guy with 4 cracked ribs come to the broadcast, but he's here with 4 cracked ribs. It's an easy way to say, hey, Yorke, take it easy on me tonight. I got 4 cracked ribs, but I got no argument with him anyway. I just think it's gutsy, especially in this weather. And speaking of the weather, last night I come home from the PC game. What a game, by the way. Double overtime. Boy, they needed that one. 11 o'clock at night, and the snow is piled up like this at the end of the driveway. And I'm thinking, Florida, man. Well, that was my state of mind. But when the spring comes, it's oh so beautiful. What a miserable day today. Now the rain is pouring down. We don't have time to talk weather, but I just thought I'd commiserate with you. Anywho, let's go to the rundown before we get to our important conversation tonight. This is about our conversation, but I wanted to say a thing or two preliminarily. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. Our federal representatives are playing a game that I think most people see through, I would hope anyway. This is silly. Fellas, just stop. Next. Laura's like, when's he done with that? When do I move on to the next one? This is weird, sadly weird. This is funny, and my superstitions got the best of me, and that's a celebration. All right, let's get right down to it. On the rundown, digging deeper, kicking that can down the road? Well, yes, sort of. Here was the headline in the Providence Journal a couple of days ago. Municipal response to plan mixed, or maybe that was today's headline. It's today's headline. Doesn't matter. There's a bunch of headlines on how the towns are reacting to this settlement thing. And look, we've got this $25 million burden that nobody really wants to talk about to the taxpayers, both on the state side and the local side, split, of course, estimated to be split, to make this pension settlement, which never should have come to bear via the way that it did, come true. So the mayors got together yesterday, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about with Dan Beardsley from the League of Cities and Towns. But here's one mayor, Joe Policina, talking about how, nobody loves us. No, someone's going to talk to us.
I think that at least one mayor, maybe representing a group of mayors, should have at least had some voice, if you will, with the state, going in with the state as a party with the state and keep us informed.
Now, one of the things that was floated at this event, reportedly, according to the Journal story, is this notion that there might be a little reamortization conversation, meaning reloading the debt on the overall pension burden, right, stretching it out, and maybe that would eliminate the need for the local towns to contribute. On the back end of that sloppy Joe sandwich, what that does is extend the chance for the fund to come to 80% funding, which then delays the benefits to pensioners. Dan Beardsley gets a lot about this. He was the lone vote no on the retirement board when this settlement came to bear. He'll tell us why, and we'll get after that. But let's move on. The next one, come on, Sheldon. U.S. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, he and other federal officials, Congressman Cicilline, Congressman Langevin, bring a whole bunch of people together as they play this charade game politically over the minimum wage. Here's what the good senator, the junior senator, had to say yesterday.
The value of the minimum wage has declined steadily since 1968, and it's now about a third of what it used to be then. And the result of that is that you can be earning the lawful federal minimum wage, working full-time, and still have your family in poverty. And to raise it to 1010, a significant difference, and we believe that by doing that, that will actually raise the entire economy.
What a joke. First of all, the Congressional Budget Office just came out in an Associated Press report today saying, guess what? There will be 500,000 jobs lost in this country. This is the CBO, allegedly neutral. 500,000 jobs lost in this country based on a 7.25 raise to 1010 over even a couple of short years. Look, I don't want to hurt anybody. I'd like to see everybody make a lot of money. I'd be willing to give up a couple of bucks if they would just stop with this nonsense about raising families on the minimum wage. Anybody that thinks they can raise a family on the minimum wage, whether it's $7, $10, or even $15 an hour, they're whistling Dixie, unless they're looking for more subsidy from me to be able to take care of their family. There's a bigger conversation here, but this political branding, as one astute radio listener mentioned to me on the radio show, Dan Yorke, weekdays noon to 3 on WPRO, he said, listen, this is not about getting the minimum wage raised, it's about just making people feel like they're there to help them. It's all politics, no substance. Might just be. Next item. Come on, this is getting to be a little bit silly. The headline on the front page of the Providence Journal today, GOP opponents face their former stands on gun control. All of a sudden, these two guys, Ken Block and Alan Fung, are at each other's throats over their former stands on gun control. Alan had some thoughts reportedly, and then he actually took some target practice, and all of a sudden he's got a whole different view about how to play with guns responsibly. And Ken Block was traumatized by Newtown, as we all were, and said some things about gun control that he's now stepped away from. And now both of them are at each other's throats about who said what when 6 months, a year, 6 years ago about gun control. Fellas, stay on the big idea, will you? Knock it off. I know the conservative Republicans want to check in with you on gun control. By the time you're both done, you'll be right on the same page on gun control, and it'll be the least of our concerns in trying to get this state in shape. Knock it off, knuckleheads. I feel like just banging them together. Cut it out. Very violent, sorry. Didn't mean to be. Let's go to the next one. Weirder still. Look at this headline out of Bloomberg online today. Worsening U.S. divorce rate points to improving economy. Now, I would think that a tougher economy would mean that people aren't getting along because of the stress and they'd be splitting up. I guess that's that's true in part, but they couldn't afford to split up. So they were hating each other and living on top of each other. So a weird byproduct of a better economy is that people who don't love each other anymore now can afford to say, screw you, I'm out of here. It's like, okay, I never thought to look at that data, but it's interesting. So check your neighbors, see if they're getting along. Check the economy and try to figure it out for yourself. This is funny. So Powerball is at what, 400 million? Did you get your ticket? Justin, Laura, did you get your ticket?
Not yet.
Come, are you going to get one? Oh, yeah. Are you going to get one?
No.
You don't buy them? Jess doesn't buy them. She makes too much money producing the show. She doesn't need to win the lottery. So anyway, I was listening to Steve Klampkin in his news on our radio today, and he talked to man on the street on the Powerball. This is funny. Listen to this guy's response as to whether he's going to get a ticket or not.
You playing Powerball?
No, not yet, but we might if it gets a little bit higher.
What, 400 million's not enough?
Well, no, it is, but I just haven't gotten a ticket. Maybe I might.
The entertainment value of Powerball, I guess, doesn't begin until it's $500 million or more. What was the last one, 600 million or something like that? So I got some gas today, and I thought, oh boy, maybe I'll get a Powerball ticket. I don't usually buy them, and I got kind of a philosophical argument with actually winning the whole thing, but I won't bore you with that. So I go in, and I'm thinking $5. So I said, can you give me 5 quick picks? He goes, sure. He says, oh no. I said, what? He said, I doubled it. I said, what do you mean you doubled it? He said, I gave you tickets for tonight and for Saturday. I can reconcile. I said, don't touch that. My grandfather taught me back in the old days, when you get a bad ticket at the track, you never turned your numbers back in. So I said, give me that ticket. So here it is right here. What I forgot was, these are $2 tickets. I went in thinking I'm going to spend $5. I came out with $20 in expense for this sucker. Wish me luck. And finally, no luck for the Russians. They're out. Look at this. Yes, the ESPN headline, Finland takes Russia out. And poor Mr. Putin. Here's a great tweet calling him Satamir. Look at how upset he is. This guy spent $51 billion, and all he wanted was a hockey gold. He's got nothing. He's our ally. We should be nice. When, by the way, if the United States makes it, it'll be a Sunday morning telecast, and I'll be up bright and early. I know you will too. All right, when we come back, the mayor's point of view, the municipality's point of view, the struggle of trying to make the bills. Dan Beardsley next. There's the scene at the retirement board where State Treasurer Gina Raimondo held her latest meeting, and they ratified a settlement that, frankly, I don't think ever should have come to the retirement board, but that's just my thought on this. We'll see what my guest thinks, but first here's one of the headlines that has dominated this week's cycle of the pension settlement conversation, and municipalities decry the impacts on budgets. First of all, for 30, you all right?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
You are a stud.
And I don't call me a stud. I just do what I need to do.
It doesn't have to go. He's got 4 broken ribs, so if he gasps or just looks for air, the trouble is not in your television. I'll make sure he gets through this whole thing. Thanks for coming. Courageous,
my pleasure.
as it is. Dan, how long have you been running the League of Cities and Towns now, Executive Director?
April Fool's Day this year will be 40 years. I've been employed by the League. I took over the directorship in 1989.
You know the ropes.
I feel.
This settlement, let's go to the big picture and see if you agree with me. Don't have to. I think the settlement never should have come, period. I think a judge should have made a decision. There should be a constitutional rendering on whether the General Assembly was statutorily correct in changing the pension deal at all back in 2011. Yes or no?
Yours truly couldn't agree more with that statement.
Okay, so I've made enough speeches about this. I don't have to make any more. Let's just continue the conversation under the given that that's what we both agree should have happened. Having said that, they come up with this settlement deal, and it's a little bit of a nudge for the benefits for the state employees, but it's a $25 million burden to the taxpayers. Half ballpark is the municipalities. And this overused phrase actually does become pertinent here. We needed a seat at the table. Your people had no seat at the table.
No, Dan, we didn't have a seat at the table. Quite frankly,
I don't think there should have been a table.
I don't think there should have been a table in the first place.
Right, okay.
I think the table should have been the courtroom of Judge Taft Carter, and let her and just go with it.
Right.
But it didn't proceed that way. So the mediation took place. We did consider filing a motion to intervene to become part of the mediation. We were not part of the mediation because, quite simply, we weren't a named defendant. There were 4 named defendants. And
right, you weren't sued.
No, we weren't sued.
Yeah.
So we were told we didn't have standing. So we waited and waited and waited. And then finally, last week, when the announcement was made that the retirement board would be voting, I finally agreed the day before to abide by the order of court confidentiality that most of the other members of the retirement board had agreed to a week earlier. And the reason I did not agree to it was I wanted some extra time to be able to converse with city and town officials and other people in the state to see if I can find out what exactly was contained in that settlement. I had less than 30 hours to peruse and understand approximately 120 pages of information. The public employee bargaining units, who will have an opportunity over the next 6 weeks to vote on this, active and retirees, will have 6 weeks to peruse it. The General Assembly didn't have a seat at the table, yet they'll have approximately 4.5 months, give or take, to peruse the final document.
My opinion, I'm not sure they'll get it even after 4.5 months, but that's my, we'll see how that goes. All right, so it took all that time to get it to you, and then you had no time to bring a review around. But listen, bottom line here is that the cost to the cities and towns, over $1 million to Providence, whittled on down to the smaller communities, is not in budgets. It's not something they want to bear in perpetuity. And so...
It's one of the most expensive unfunded mandates perpetrated on cities and towns in my 4 decades.
Oh, that's a grand statement.
Well, it is.
So what to do?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. I have a...
Does the league have a formal response to this?
No, we don't. I have a monthly regular scheduled board of directors meeting on March 10th. I plan on putting that on the agenda along with one other major item. Yet this afternoon, after receiving a call from one of the governor's policy people, I agreed that the governor should, because he wanted to, come to my March 10th board meeting and make a pitch to my board of directors the same way he made a pitch to those assembled at the State House yesterday. I also know that a week from tomorrow, the governor is going to be attending the monthly meeting of the City and Town Managers Association to again make a pitch that we should sign on to this agreement.
Right. Well, here's the thing. When we come back, we'll talk about why the mayors most likely don't want to. And it's not just about the one line item in the budget. Stay with us. Welcome back in. Dan Beardsley heads up the League of Cities and Towns. And by the way, the reason why the local conversation is involved in this pension settlement is you need to understand, these are state employees, but there are also local teachers and some firefighters that are in local plans, pension plans that are administered by the state, and they fall into this category. And that's something that I think a lot of people get confused over, right?
Yes, absolutely correct. There's the state employee system, there's the teacher system, there's the municipal employees retirement system, which covers general municipal employees, such as your town hall, your public works, your highway. And then under the MERS system, there are two separate plans, the public safety plans of police officers and firefighters.
All right, so there's a burden to the local communities with this deal. So I guess at the end of this session yesterday, a little idea was floated out there that there might be some kind of reamortization. In other words, remortgage, reborrow of the existing burden in order to maybe eliminate the $25 million worth of cost. That ain't a good idea, is it?
I don't think it's a good idea. My board of directors rejected that in its entirety when it was floated back in 2011. One of the surprising outcomes of this mediated pension settlement, which at least was a surprise to me, Dan, was the fact that there's no funding mechanism to pay either the state's costs or local government costs. That and that issue only is left to the Rhode Island General Assembly. If the public employees approve this, and it does indeed go to the Assembly, they can either pass on it or swallow it whole. They cannot make any changes to it. However, the funding mechanism aspect of it, who is going to pay for the state share, how are the local shares going to be paid, could you tie in a short period of reamortization to lower the municipal costs? That subject was broached yesterday by my associate director, actually, and in response, Richard Leach and Mark Dingley from the Treasurer's Office said that that could be a possibility for the General Assembly to consider.
Well, that's going to be
I hope my board doesn't agree to it, but
well, there'll be a tough political pill to swallow for legislators who made a tough call under a lot of duress in 2011, then revisit this thing and then have to make up a funding mechanism, translation, tax of some kind to you in order to be able to pay for this. The other thing that the local municipalities are burdened with, which gets no conversation, is their own pension problems, the contractual pension problems within the municipalities, and the OPEB, which is the other post-employment benefits, the health costs. These towns are suffocating from these problems. They need this additional cost like a hole in the head, right?
not only are they suffocating, but if you take a look at the numbers, the spreadsheets of how the mediated pension settlement is impacting communities, if you take a look at the 6 or 7 communities that have been identified by the state as distressed communities, the worst fiscal impact is on those communities that have already deemed to be fiscally stressed. Pawtucket, Woonsocket, newly elected Mayor Baldelli Hunt would have to cough up $600,000. Woonsocket, they're still under the aegis of a state budget commission. East Providence just got rid of a state budget commission. They finally straightened out their finances. West Warwick is teetering on the precipice, but the governor said we should be happy with the outcome.
Well, I'm going to have to drag you back in, ribs or not, over the course of this whole thing for perspective, because it's really an important perspective. What's your projection on how this whole thing is going to roll out in a minute or less?
Dan, I honestly have no idea. I honestly have no idea. My gut tells me that given the way the vote has been structured, a non-return ballot by
Crazy.
I never heard of such a thing.
If I keep my ballot for 60 days and don't turn it back, I'm a yes vote.
If I declare my candidacy for
This
U.S.
is for the unions.
president tomorrow, all the non-return mail ballots, I'd be elected president.
Don't
Think
laugh.
about it. Think
Your
about it.
ribs are going to really hurt.
Think about it.
All right. We'll see. Thanks for
My
coming
pleasure.
in. Dan Beardsley. Yeah, pretty good for 4 cracked ribs. Completely on his game. When we come back, your state of mind. Stay with us. You know, I just want to reemphasize what my guest Dan Beardsley was talking about in terms of the union vote. I mentioned it on the monologue, on the rundown yesterday. Can you imagine that the pension settlement that just came out needs a union ratification, and the union rank and file have 60 days to return their ballots? The only way, and if they don't return a ballot, it's an automatic yes vote. The only way they can count a no vote is to mark no and send the ballot back. Otherwise, they're a yes. I don't think that's constitutional. Anyway, let's go to your state of mind and how you get in touch with the broadcast. 228-1886 is the phone number. Leave a voicemail. We'll play it. stateofmind@myritv.com. That's the email. And tweet and Facebook post at us here. Here's a Facebook post I thought was kind of interesting. Actually, it's an email from Patrick. Former Representative Bob Watson's historical views on the Rhode Island public pension system were very informative and spot on. We love the fact that he brought in a copy of a 1995 story. And here's the picture he brought in the other day. If they'd made some tough decisions in the mid-90s, we wouldn't be in this particular pension predicament, right? All right. It's an ongoing saga. Can I see Putin one more time, Laura? $51 billion. And all I got was a hockey team to the quarterfinals. Vladimir Putin. I love that. I'll see you tomorrow night. We're here every weeknight, 7:30, repeating at 11:30 on MyRI TV. Good night.